Tennessee, 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 Tennessee. Got it because Tennessee. Take me to another place. Take me to another land. Make me forget all of the things. Let me understand.
Time now for my 2014 previews to resume. We're talking about Tennessee, and if it has seemed a while since Tennessee has gone to a bowl game, you know something? You're right. It has been since 2010 in the Music City Bowl. Hard to believe a program that's got so much money, that seats over 100,000, has a big fan base. And by the way, I'm old enough to know that Tennessee growing up won quite frequently. And of course, I was in my late 20s when Tennessee won the 98 National Championship, the first ever BCS title game. So they can win there. There's no question about it. They're a big enough name. And as a matter of fact, Butch Jones entering year number 2, he just came off a top 10 nationwide recruiting class. So there is hope for the future. But talking about the recent past, it's been a program that's been disappointing and a program that should be doing a lot better than they are. Breaking down the offense first for Tennessee, receiving core I think is going to be their biggest strength because they do have some experience coming back and also some newcomers that could make that receiving core finally emerge as one of the more notable ones in the SEC. Marquez North is back as well as Jason Kroom. Got a couple of tall targets that the quarterback, whether it's going to be Justin Worley or Josh Dobbs, probably going to be Worley. He's the senior to throw to. So that helps, along with newcomers at the wideouts. Josh Malone, 6 feet 3 inches tall. He's a freshman. Vaughn Pearson, he'll be a newcomer as well, a junior college guy, junior college transfer. So those two guys really could be the X factors for the Volunteers, because you're going to see the Volunteers throw quite a bit. But don't forget about the running game, and they will miss Rajon Neal. He was a 1,100-yard plus rusher from a year ago, had double digits in touchdowns. So that's a glaring omission for Tennessee that hurts that he's not there. So Marlon Lane, as well as freshman Jalen Hurd, those two guys have got to be the catalyst for Tennessee's backfield. Lane did have some experience from a year ago. Offensive line, though, fairly new. In fact, it's going to be completely new other than the tight end, Brandon Downs. Tennessee, the only team in the country that had to replace their entire offensive line as far as down lineman and defensive line. So you talk about, starting from the bottom, that's where Tennessee has to do on both sides of the ball. Defensively, we already mentioned that the line is going to have inexperience, but potential there. You got Cody Vereen, you got Jordan Williams at defensive end. Now, if they aren't able to apply enough pressure from the defensive end spot, don't be surprised if Kurt Magott, coming off the ACL injury from a year ago and is listed as outside linebacker, don't be surprised if they utilize him more at the defensive end spot. That'll be the key for Tennessee. Try to get that quarterback pressure, because last year their rush defense was one of the worst in the country. Rush D last year, boy, oh boy, they gave up well over 200 yards per game, 100th in the country. Whoa, cannot have that again if you're a Volunteer fan. But linebacking core, we mentioned that Magott, trying to make a comeback after the ACL. Being a Sooner fan like I am, that September 13th game in Norman, which I'm already thinking about, it stinks that Tennessee returned this guy. Okay, it's good for Tennessee, but I wish A.J. Johnson had turned pro. He is the best defensive player, I think, in the SEC, period. Okay, one of the best linebackers in the country. Not the fastest linebacker, but boy, oh boy, he'll lay a lick on you. Doesn't blow tackles, makes everybody around him better. Comes back for his senior year. He's averaged 108 tackles per season since his freshman year. And again, it stinks from my perspective as a Sooner fan that he came back, but at least this is his final year. Again, just one heck of a player, of course. Secondary, got at least 3 guys back. Cameron Sutton, Justin Coleman, the corners return. Coleman, by the way, could be used as a nickel back because I've heard Tennessee might play more nickel this year. And then safety, you have Brian Randolph. Okay, he's a good one. Looking at the special teams, their kicker, place kicker, their punter / place kicker from a year ago, he's got to be replaced. So Matt Darr, who punted a few years ago for the Volunteers back in 2011, he is projected to be their starting punter this year. And then the place kicker, George Bullock, he has big shoes to fill. Looking at the schedule for Tennessee, yeah, it is brutal. It is big time difficult. And that really is the middle and the really middle part of the year, I think. Okay, once they get from late September all the way to mid-November. But even the beginning of the schedule, the first 2 games are no gimmies either. In fact, Tennessee's first 3 games are against teams that a lot of people think are going to win their conference. Utah State, the opener, they're projected to win the Mountain West. and Arkansas State. The Red Bulls projected to win the Sun Belt. You get those 2 games at home at least, but Tennessee can't overlook either opponent. And of course, September 13th in Norman against my Sooners on September 13th, as I mentioned, Sooners should be a double-digit favorite to beat Tennessee. At least the Volunteers get a week off after OU to play Georgia in Athens, Tennessee. Should have had Georgia beat last year. A banged-up Bulldog team went to Knoxville. Looked like they were going to go down for the count. Georgia pulled that victory off in the final moments of that game. Play Florida the following week at home. That's a swing game. You might need a win against the Gators in the long term for this season to get that necessary 6-win minimum to qualify for a bowl game. So watch for that Florida game. It's a swing game right there. You get Chattanooga. Really, I think they're only absolute guarantee that they'll win. Right there in the middle part of the year, October 11th, get Chattanooga at home. Another tough 3-game stretch for Tennessee, though, at top 20 Ole Miss. Then you host your intra-divisional rival, your natural rival, Alabama. Yeah, thanks a lot. That figures to be the toughest game of the year. And then you go to South Carolina. It doesn't ease up after that. From Bama at South Carolina, even though they beat the Gamecocks a year ago, South Carolina is going to be even better this year. Plus, it's a road game for Tennessee. Last 3 games, a little bit of a reprieve, perhaps. Kentucky at home, Missouri, another swing game at home, the defending SEC East champions. You close out the season, though, at Vanderbilt, your intra-state rival. Play that one in Nashville. Again, you'll need that win as well to get closer to that 6-win total. You might have to have that last game as a victory to get the 6 wins. Best case scenario, 8-4 for Tennessee. That's if the offensive and defensive lines mature, develop as the season goes along. If the receivers turn out to be the true strength of this team, because I do think Tennessee will throw quite a bit, and if they can stay healthy, I look for Tennessee, best case scenario, to do more than qualify for a bowl game to get to 8 wins. Worst case scenario, it could be the opposite. It could be 4-8. Again, if that inexperience up front doesn't work out, if there's injuries galore, especially on the interiors, and also, too, if they struggle with the QB position and if they cannot find an adequate replacement for Rajon Neal at running back, then it could absolutely go the other direction. But no matter what happens, I hope that Butch Jones does get enough time to allow Tennessee to become a true winning program. Again, 2 years isn't enough for any coach, and especially not for Butch Jones. So hopefully they'll give him time at Knoxville. Likely scenario, I do think Tennessee will qualify for a bowl game at 6-6, and I think that's important because if you get to 6 wins, it leads to this. Additional practices, something that they haven't been able to do once this regular season has ended for the past 4 seasons. That means if you don't get a bowl game, it means more than just missing out on the bowl experience. It means you fall even further behind the squads that did go to a bowl game. In this Tennessee team, they need as much practice as they can get, as much time to develop chemistry. And the only way you do that isn't by watching a football game. It's by playing it and by practicing as much as possible. You get that additional week or 2 of practice to prepare for a bowl game. That prepares you even more for seasons ahead. I think Tennessee will once again start winning and winning consistently, but probably not for another year or 2. They've only got 12 seniors on this team, so I do think for Tennessee, got to be patient with them, got to give them time, but I think they do make a slight improvement this season to 6-6. That's my look at the Vols. Another preview coming soon. Thanks, everyone.